Tactical evacuations were conducted, and evacuation orders and alerts are now in place. This wildfire has proven to be extremely volatile, and everyone in the area should leave immediately if they have not already done so. Emergency support services are available in Cache Creek, including hotel rooms for those who need them, and I understand Kamloops is also prepared to support as needed. We are working closely with the Cooks Ferry Indian Band and the Thompson-Nicola Regional District to respond and to keep people safe. I am thinking of everyone who has been impacted as this situation unfolds. We will be able to share further updates later today. I've spent the last several days visiting communities in the interior, from Vernon and Lumbee to Chase and Salmon Arm, and of course right here in Kamloops. It is a privilege to be here in such a beautiful part of the province. Today in Kamloops is what appears to be a wonderful day, though, as we all know too well, living in such warm, sunny places can come with risks. Heat events can be difficult for everyone, and I want to thank those who have checked in on their neighbors and loved ones during recent days. As we go further into the summer and into another week of high temperatures and heat warnings, I encourage everyone to continue to check on those more vulnerable to heat-related illnesses. Public cooling spaces and emergency cooling centers remain open throughout the province, including at the Sandman Center concourse here in Kamloops at 300 Lawrence Street. How's the audio? Shall we continue? People can find the locations through their local government or First Nations website or at emergencymapbc.ca. Periods of heat and drought increase the risk of wildfires, as we have seen over the last several days. We've seen a number of new wildfires started by lightning. And as of 7 a.m. this morning, we have over 170 wildfires burning throughout the province, including 13 right here in the Kamloops Fire Center. We have nearly 800 firefighting personnel on the ground working to keep British Columbians safe, and we are incredibly grateful to have Australian and New Zealand specialists join them in this fight this weekend. In the last few days, I have met with emergency management personnel here in Kamloops and the surrounding area, people who are working and volunteering to ensure the safety of people in their communities. It has been impressive to see the array of expertise and initiatives everywhere I've visited. Communities like Adams Lake Indian Band, who were impacted by wildfire last summer and have been working hard to shore up their response capacity since. They've just acquired a brand new wildland firefighting truck and now boast a complement of 24 volunteer firefighters. I also met with several local search and rescue teams who, in addition to the good work they do year-round, often play a vital role during evacuations. I appreciated getting to meet experienced teams from Shuswap, Kamloops, and Vernon, as well as newer teams building up capacity like Barrier Search and Rescue. And I want to thank all of them for their continued dedication and their hard work. Just yesterday, we announced that 29 additional communities will receive funding for their emergency operations centers, hubs where resources and services are coordinated among partners during emergencies. This year alone, over 100 communities have received this funding. Part of this funding will support the work we're doing with the Thompson-Nicola Regional District so that they can create and stock a mobile emergency operations center, as well as install equipment and solar panels for their existing EOC to keep the center stronger and more resilient during times of emergency. In emergencies, we need everyone to pull together, and my ministry will continue to work to better support local governments and First Nations as they keep their communities safe. I want to close off by reminding everyone that now is the time to ensure that you are prepared for any emergency, in particular wildfire. If you are not already ready, please take the time to make sure you, your family, and your households are ready. Be fire smart. Ensure your insurance is up to date. Go to firesmartbc.ca for a detailed list of how to better protect your home. If you see a wildfire, report it through the BC Wildfire Service app or call 1-800-663-5555 from a landline or dial *5555 from your cell phone. If you are traveling, ensure that you check Drive BC and Emergency Info BC. Be prepared by packing adequate supplies and keep an eye out for unattended fires. Continue to follow all emergency alerts and orders issued by your local government or First Nation. And thank you to everyone for staying alert so far this summer, for following the province-wide campfire ban, and for helping to protect our and for helping to protect our wildlife, our families, and our communities. I'd like to thank all British Columbians for your dedication and your hard work. I have lost my place. Pardon me, everybody. The dangers of having papers out here in the wild, outdoors. I'm now happy to take questions and do have joining me today Cliff Chapman, Director of Wildfire Operations with the BC Wildfire Service, and Andrew Morrison, who is the Senior Regional Manager with the Ministry of Emergency Management and Climate Readiness. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today. We will take questions now. For media in the room, please line up at the microphone provided and state your name and outlet. We will take questions from media in the room first. Go ahead, please.
Hi, Minister. Alyssa Thibault with Global News. This is probably directed at Cliff Chapman. If you could just give us some more details about what happened last night with the Shetland Creek fire.
Is that picking it up? Okay, thank you for the question. So the Shetland Creek wildfire and the Tate Creek wildfire merged yesterday afternoon. So that is now one fire, and on the BC Wildfire Service app, it is now showing as one fire. So I want to clear up any confusion that we won't be posting around the Tate Creek fire anymore. It is now the Shetland Creek wildfire. Yesterday, the decision was made to send an incident management team. It was actually the night before a decision was made to send an incident management team to that fire. They arrived late last night and are still transitioning in this morning. We also had, or heading there right now and on site is 2 unit crews and 4 initial attack crews, somewhere in the neighborhood of 55 individuals to support suppression efforts on that fire, in addition to structure protection and structure defense personnel and a specialist that is working to secure any of the structures in the valley bottom that fire might be threatening. At the last update I received, there was no impact to structures, although they are threatened. That's why the order is in place. And we'll be focusing our effort through the incident management team and our ground resources trying to protect those structures today. That fire saw aggressive fire behavior as we entered into the evening last night, what we would consider rank 4 and rank 5. And the suppression efforts were really challenged on the ground. And so our efforts really focused on trying to ensure that we got people out of the evacuation orders area safely and quickly. And we, for the first time this season on a wildfire, we actually deployed our night vision capable aircraft onto that fire. It came over from Penticton to support, to ensure that our crews were safe on the ground and to support both the evacuation order and getting people out, but also our ground operations so we could do them more safely. There'll be more information coming on this fire as that incident management team gets embedded today. And likely you'll see local posts from that incident management team on our Facebook page and on our app.
Do you have a follow-up?
Can I just make a quick audio check? Is everyone still all right for us to carry on? Okay, great.
Yeah, so yes, again for Cliff, just to talk about like the growth that happened, can you just maybe talk about the weather conditions and why that fire grew so fast?
Yeah, thank you for the follow-up on that. So as we've been discussing at the media availability last week and then also as we've gone through the last 7 days of continued hot and dry conditions, in particular in the Fraser Valley, we see record-breaking temperatures. And the other part about the Fraser Canyon and in that valley is not only do we see localized or the regional winds that we were forecasting to be somewhat aggressive yesterday, But then you get the valley effect of just how tight the valleys are there. And so what we saw yesterday afternoon with the change sort of from a very stable air mass to an unstable air mass, what that really means in sort of simple terms is we saw an increase in wind. That increase in wind pushed that fire over the ridge, combined the Tate Creek and Shetland fire together, and then created a flame front that wind had a lot of energy to push down the valley. I think in terms of weather, both for that fire and for the rest of BC, in particular the southern 2/3 of BC, we still are forecasting another 7 days of above sort of average temperatures. We're going to see temperatures in the mid-30s, even cresting into 40 degrees in the southern interior over the next few days. And that's going to be followed, that's going to be also have wind associated with it on Friday this week and Sunday this week. So for all of British Columbians, my message is be diligent. We are going to see lightning. We saw 1,300 lightning strikes yesterday, many of which started fires in the Southeast Fire Center, and we'll pick up more today. With lightning, we're also going to see wind, and so we need everyone in BC to do diligent. And if you're on an evacuation order, please leave so that we can do response in that area.
Any other questions in the room? Please go ahead.
This question might be for Cliff Chapman as well. One of the questions I was hoping to ask, I guess, kind of builds on that with the conditions that we're seeing in the weather in the week ahead. How has BC Wildfire Service been preparing for potential new fire starts or aggressive fire behavior that we might see?
Yeah, thank you. So obviously we watch the weather all the time, really on an hourly basis, trying to understand where the potential is for new fires and what those fires might do. And we have a predictive services unit that is constantly feeding us that intelligence. That intelligence feeds our preparedness plan. And so in terms of how we've been preparing, we have called in, as Minister Ma stated, we have called in for additional support from Australia and New Zealand. That's in the form of incident management teams and highly trained and highly certified individuals that can support us on these fires if they do get a little bit bigger than initial attack. In addition to that, we've also put in requests for more crews to come and support us on the ground. I think what's different this year than previous years is that we have much more engagement with communities and their firefighting resources through the Cooperative Community Firefighting Program, also our relationship with the municipal fire departments. So we have stood up our preparedness across the province with multiple resources in every zone in anticipation of both lightning and or non-lightning fires starting so that we can have aggressive initial attack on those fires. And the final thing I'll say is that Tuesday, we also asked for 2 additional air tankers, which you can hear taking off behind me. And thankfully to Alaska and the Yukon, they are sending us one aircraft each that arrived yesterday and will be deployed today in support of our preparedness and response.
Do we want to take a pause? Okay, we're going to take a pause to allow the aircraft to leave.
Castanet News. My second follow-up is for Minister Ma. Minister, I'm curious about your meeting with Kamloops Council on Tuesday. I know Council has pitched a dedicated emergency support facility in Kamloops. Did that come up at all on Tuesday, and is there any update on this?
Yeah, we had a really excellent conversation with Mayor Council on Tuesday. Spoke about their priorities around emergency management, our shared priorities around emergency management. Kamloops has been consistently an excellent partner with the province in supporting evacuees, not only from the Kamloops municipality, but from the surrounding region as well. They are a regional hub for helping people in need, and there are a few for sure, but they are among the most experienced emergency evacuee support centers in the province. We're incredibly grateful for their partnership. We have been talking about the opportunity to formalize a regional model. It is something that has been happening informally so far, but it is something that is of interest to me in the province, and we're in conversations with them about how that might look and what it would take to make it happen. A regional model would involve coordination with the regional district as well as to Kamloops to Secwépemc, all of whom work very well together.
Any more questions? Yes, please go ahead.
Hi, I'm Marcella from CBC. I wanted to ask Cliff, I have a question for Minister Ma as well, but I wanted to ask Cliff first. You mentioned that there was no structure damage done in the Venables Valley area overnight. Would you be able to explain, we spoke to a resident this morning who was very upset, saying that he asked for structure support days ago and it never happened. Could you kind of give us some insight into why?
If I could maybe start, and then I'll pass it off to Cliff. This is a very dynamic situation. Information that has been provided to us even half an hour ago will change as the day goes on. It is an extremely stressful time for people in those communities, and there will be time for us to work with those communities to assess the extent of the damage once the fires are under control. I will also say I've been in contact with Chief Christine Walkham. Her community they are reeling. And although, and I will say that structure losses are not the only kind of losses that matter to a community, particularly Indigenous communities where there are important cultural assets and communities where there are livestock. There will be time to discuss this in full following the control of the wildfire itself, but I do want to emphasize right now it is an extremely dynamic situation. I don't know if you wanted to add anything at this time or wait.
Yeah, I can add just a little.
Yeah, and thank you for that question. And it's unfortunate to hear that resident's response. You know, from wildfire's perspective, we send structure protection specialists into fires that have the potential to have impacts on structures, and they assess and then deploy sprinklers and other structure protection and structure defense. So I can't speak specifically to this resident. Obviously, I don't know which resident it is. What I will say, though, is that this is a big evolution that BC Wildfire Service has made in partnership with municipal fire departments across BC over the last number of years. And it's something that we continue to, as Minister Ma said, somebody with their residents being threatened, that's a high stress, high emotion event. And really, we're doing everything we can to go and try to protect those structures. I also just want to clarify one point. To our knowledge at this point, there have been no structure impacts. Obviously, as Minister Ma said, that we have a dynamic situation occurring out there today, and we'll see how that fire plays for the rest of the day. But our response resources are really focused on protecting those structures as we speak.
Marcella, do you have a follow-up?
Just to follow up, I know that it's difficult, and we've talked about this in the past, but when you say the number of properties that had to be evacuated, can somebody give us an idea as to how many people are actually impacted by this? How many families had to clear out last night?
There was a tactical evacuation that occurred last night. That means that community members will have had to leave without any notice. That is an extraordinarily extraordinarily stressful situation for anybody to be in, which is why it is incredibly important for everyone in a potential disaster zone, in an area of the province that is at risk of hazards. And unfortunately, I have to say, pretty much everybody is at risk of some kind of hazard. It's incredibly important for people to be prepared, to have your emergency grab-and-go kit ready, to have an emergency plan in place for your family. Your emergency grab-and-go kit will include copies of important documents that you might need while you're away from home. It is important to ensure that you know before you go. Check Drive BC, Emergency Info BC to understand what the hazards are in the areas that you are traveling. At this time, the numbers are, I'm afraid I have to revert back to my earlier comment, which is it is very, very dynamic. We have some numbers coming in from overnight, but it is actively changing. If I give you a number now, by the time it's reported, it's likely that it will change already. And so I hesitate to provide up-to-date numbers right now.
Any questions in the room? Yeah, sure.
It's Alyssa with Global again. Just getting a question from my colleagues. Do you have any update on the fires around Nelson?
Yeah, and again, I encourage everybody to go to the BC Wildfire Service app, where we make every effort to try to put as real-of-time information on that app as we can. But I can speak generally to what happened in the Southeast Fire Center. Yesterday, we saw a weather system move up from the United States, which carried a lot of convective activity, in other words, lightning. So we saw significant lightning strikes kind of through the Southeast Fire Center. There was one cluster that hit in and around the Nelson area. To my knowledge, we picked up 6 to 8 fires in that area. Fortunately, last night we were able to get air tankers and other aviation and ground resources on many of those fires. But again, as Minister Ma just spoke to and I spoke to earlier, the conditions are extreme right now with the dryness that we've experienced in this province over the course of the last 2 weeks and the anticipated week ahead. You know, all of our suppression efforts will be challenged. We need to get on these fires quickly and try to get them suppressed and into being held as quickly as we can. We had some success with the cluster of fires around Nelson yesterday, but we do anticipate there's going to be smoke in that area today, and we may find new fires today from the strikes in the area.
Okay, going to the phone line now. Request to all the reporters joined via Zoom, please press *1. Sorry, join online. We have Wolf Deppner. Please go ahead, Wolf.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you for taking my question. Just looking at the bigger picture here a little bit on what sort of a precipice are we standing right now in terms of the fire activity? Because up till now, I would argue that we've had a relative good luck, but now the weather conditions are changing a little bit. On how much of a precipice are we standing here in terms of fire activity across BC, especially in the southern interior? Thank you.
We are very fortunate here in BC to have seen this somewhat delayed start, with the exception of the north. Again, in the north, you'll recall that Fort Nelson and Fort Nelson First Nation, Doig River First Nation, had to evacuate their communities very early on in the season. However, the wetter, cooler temperatures that we saw through May and June did allow our crews to concentrate their efforts up north where they are needed. That being said, we have also been communicating to the public consistency since early July that as temperatures rise, as the climate, as the weather dries out, we are still in drought conditions in many parts of the province, and those elevated temperatures are increasing wildfire risk. We're seeing that this week, which is why the BC Wildfire Service has been proactive in requesting additional resources from outside of the province. Specialists from Australia, New Zealand have already arrived. I will pause here to see if Cliff has anything else that he'd like to add.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Minister. And Wolf, thank you for the question. I'll be really clear. I do believe that we are on the precipice of a very challenging 72 hours. We saw lightning come through yesterday. That's now being replaced with 30-plus degree weather over the course of the next 24 hours, and we anticipate more lightning in the northern half of the province today, significant lightning, as well as potentially lightning across British Columbia tomorrow with localized convective activity. Obviously, lightning is our primary source of new fires right now. And so as that lightning hits and with the conditions and the dryness Minister Ma spoke about, I do believe that we will have challenging fire situation in BC as we witnessed last night on the Shetland Creek fire. But obviously all of our focus is trying to be aggressive in our initial attack and ensure that we have the resources attacking these fires as quickly as we can.
Wolf, do you have a follow-up?
Thank you. Both Minister Ma and Cliff Chapman mentioned the additional resources that have come in or on the way in. Projecting out, what is the likelihood that BC will be asking for additional resources from other jurisdictions? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the question. So the likelihood I believe to be moderate to high. It is worth noting that across North America, and even again, as I spoke to quite a few times in 2023, there is not a lot of resource availability across the globe, but I'll specifically say across North America. So we need to be proactive in what we're looking for, make sure that we have the resources arriving on time. We do have an ask in already for additional ground firefighting crews to support our own staff, the contracted crews, and the community firefighters that we currently have engaged. And there has been no answer to that request at this point from CIFC, the Canadian Interagency Center. So I anticipate we'll continue to look for either specialized and or a group of resources, and that can include aviation resources like we requested a couple days ago.
Our next question is from Kevin Sharak, CTV News. Sorry. Go ahead, please. Are you there, Kevin? Okay.
Do you got me there?
No. Could you please
Hello?
repeat now?
Oh, there we go. Thank you. I guess this question would be for Mr. Ma. I know you mentioned it's a very dynamic fire, the Shetland Creek fire, and it's hard to put a number on the number of people who've been evacuated thus far, but can you at least tell us if it's in the dozens? Is it more than 100 people? And I guess I'll just include the follow-up here as well. Has everyone been cooperating with the evacuation order, or has there been any pushback? Thank you.
Do you have information that you'd like to offer? Whatever's...
Yeah, thanks for the question. As was already stated, evacuation numbers are very dynamic. But to give a bit of a scope and scale, as of this morning, I believe throughout the province there was 54 properties under a state of local emergency, and there was 76 properties in the TNRD specifically that were on order. And the registration and referrals process that will happen with the emergency support services, that will change moment by moment. So unfortunately, I don't have any of those numbers offhand.
Okay. When you say state of emergency, you meant alert?
Order.
56 on alert, 76 on order, around there?
Yeah.
We're talking, yeah.
54 states of local emergency, sorry, and 76 on order in the TNRD.
We can follow up with the latest information as soon as we conclude here, if it has stabilized. But we are talking about a very dynamic situation.
Kevin, do you have a follow-up?
Yeah, it was just if everyone you mentioned the 76 properties under evacuation order, if everyone in those properties had been cooperating with the order, or has there been any pushback and any people staying in their properties? Thank you.
We're not currently aware of any challenges of that nature. There will be other challenges when you have evacuees that have to leave their homes in such short order. These are difficult times. So we're not currently aware of it, but like I said, this is a dynamic situation.
Okay, we are going to Cole from City News next. Please go ahead.
Hi there. Thank you very much for taking my call here. So are there parts of the province that are going to be more receptive to fire and more likely to see new fire starts in the next 72 hours than others? Are we looking mostly in the central interior, the northeast, or there is pretty much everywhere at risk right now?
Yeah, I guess first off, yes, it's everywhere. I guess what I would caveat that with is that the system that's going to move through the north today, starting in the northwest of the province, and then kind of sweeping through, Smithers and Burns Lake and across, it might be further north than that, this system. That lightning is forecasted to come with a little bit of rain, and so we may see a bit of reprieve from that in terms of new starts. Any convective activity that occurs in the southern two-thirds of the province is highly likely to come with only localized precipitation, maybe 1 to 3 millimeters, or no rain at all. And that's going to be obviously very concerning given the conditions of our fuels right now. So in simple terms, yes, it's the whole province. We may see rain with the system that moves through the north. We are unlikely to see enough rain with anything that comes in the southern two-thirds of the province to knock down fire activity, and fires will be very aggressive right from ignition.
Cole, do you have a follow-up?
Yeah, obviously this year and last year, very different situations, but with as Minister Ma put it, the delayed start to this year's fire season, how is the BC Wildfire Service doing in terms of resources, crew, fatigue levels? I guess, are you fully ready for what's coming over the next 72 hours?
Maybe you should stay up there.
Yeah, thank you for that question, and sincerely appreciate the check-ins on our people, and I'll start there. I think as an organization, we experienced a tremendous loss last year, which has been spoken about, and it took us time over the off season to, I think, recover from that, and we'll continue to always mourn the losses that we faced last year, and I'm talking about the human losses within the organization. So this year, I think everybody's really focused on making sure that we are ready. We are ready for what's coming in the next 72 hours, but I think it's also worth noting that we have been active for the last 2.5 months. We have seen many of our resources cycle through the Prince George Fire Centre into the northeast, and they continue to see adequate rest when they return home before they either are put back onto preparedness or they launch again. So yes, I believe that we are ready. It's also it's also part of why we have asked for the incident management teams from Australia, why we have additional aircraft here already ahead of what's coming in the next 72 hours, is to try to ensure we have the right supports for our people on the ground. And I believe we are as ready as we can be for what's coming.
That's all the time we have today. This concludes the availability. Thank you, everyone, for joining.
Thank you.